A very good day to you as we have a program called Unleashing Potential. This is your host, Doc and with me, the one and only, well-known Kim Vermaak. Kim, how are you doing?
I'm very good in yourself.
Fantastic. Well, Kim, uh, one thing I can tell you that on the circuit, you are very well known as the mindset whisperer for legacy authors. So I have to ask you, what is legacy about to you?
Sure. Legacy, I used to think, was something that happened when you died, and then people say really cool things about you at your funeral. And maybe they'll write a book about you, and maybe you even get a statue. But legacy is actually a lot more than that. It is the ripple effect of every decision that we make. Because one wrong word, as we've heard from many people, one wrong word can cause a legacy to be harmful. You have kids that don't reach their potential and they say, oh, when I was a kid, my teacher told me I was stupid once, and they never ever forget that. Our bodies and our minds have got the abilities to carry traumas and reshape our destiny based on that one feeling. Whether it was accurate or inaccurate, we carry that. So to me, legacy is every decision that you make, which sounds like a massive responsibility, but it actually just is being mindful of what you're doing, that it is going to have ripple effects, that it's going to affect the next generation and the world around you.
Well, what if I tell you that I've written an ebook called Leaving a Seven Generational Legacy? How would you respond to that?
Well, that's very, very exciting. I was listening to, I think it was Patrick Bet-David, who was saying that they did a study on people who had generational wealth. And what they discovered is that the families that were able to retain the wealth had this kind of mindset. They started training their children from when they were young to understand the business, to understand the way that they worked with things. So you could put any one of those family members into a room and they would speak that legacy language. So I think it's very exciting that you've got a book that thinks way beyond just one generation.
And I might as well just give you what tickles my fancy. Everybody knows the statement, leave an inheritance to your children. But that's where they get stuck, because that is not true. If you want to have a seven generational legacy, you leave an inheritance to your children's children. There's the key. So I'm going to leave it there because it's not about me tonight. It's about you, Kim. So why do they call you the mindset whisperer? Let's just unpack that a little bit.
So I kind of adopted it by default. When I wrote my very first book, I had a lot of self-limiting beliefs, like I didn't want to get traditionally published because I was very fearful that you put the book out there and everyone's going to say no. I'm adopted, and so I've got quite a low tolerance for rejection. And so I realized that there are a lot of little voices that sit inside our heads. And those old cartoons, a little devil on this side and an angel on that side, and they're both whispering to you. And it depends on who's whispering louder and the kind of people that you're around that dictates what your life is going to be like at the end. And so while I was writing my very first book, a friend of mine said, self-publish it because you don't have to worry about that rejection. You can even upload it onto Amazon, and tomorrow someone can tell you, oh, I found a mistake on page 4, and you can just reload the new manuscript. So you can keep on evolving and carry on that way. And so I started writing the book when it was our industries shut down. So over December,
Okay.
all of the factories would shut down between 3 to 4 weeks, depending on the factory. So I found myself in a space where I didn't have anything really to do. We hadn't planned to go away that holiday. And so I thought, oh, what the heck, it's a day, I'll just write. So I wrote the first 42,000 words over 2 weeks, which some people think, my word, that's insane. But I literally didn't have anything else to do at the
Okay.
time. And then because I've got a little element of competitiveness in me, I thought to myself, well, how many words would I need to have in order for this genre to be traditionally published. So I had a look, and it was around about 80,000 words, and I realized I was only halfway there. And all of a sudden, the little voices started going, and I thought, it's taken so much just to get here, and I'm in the holidays. What happens when work comes up, and then my courage just failed, and I just said, I can't. I absolutely can't. And I had a book on my desk by Blaise Singer called The Little Voice Mastery.
Good
And
man.
I happened to be writing an article that day, so I opened it up, and in there it said that the creator of the universe has a gift that he, and some people would say she, but that he wants to put through to the world through you.
Correct.
And that's a very unique gift. So it could be heart transplant, it could be anything. It's your uniqueness that comes to the world, and that's part of his plan. And when you disobey the calling, then you're basically interrupting that plan. So because I am a Christian and I'm a practicing one, so it's not just that I was born into the faith, I practice the faith, I all of a sudden got this visualization that I get to the judgment seat, and there was like God sitting like Abraham Lincoln on this big marble kind of chair, and then next to me this huge pile of books. And he opened one of the books and he showed it to me. And when I looked at it, there were no words on the pages. And he said to me, what did you do with the words that I sent to you?
Absolutely.
And I still get goosebumps when I think about that moment, because I think, oh my goodness, it was just that one little thing. And I finished the book, and I'm now on 12 titles at the moment. And this is a really long way of answering your question, why the mindset whisperer. But as I started getting clients coming in, and I asked them, I did this exercise with the Professional Speakers Association. They said, speak to your clients and ask them to come up with 5 words that describe you. So I approached 10 clients, and I thought they would say Amazon specialist, marketing specialist, all of these kinds of things that I was trying to position myself as. And they didn't say that at all. They said encourager, motivator, you hold my hand. They said things like that. And I realized that while they were going through the struggles of trying to bring their creative genius to the world, I had the power to make them stay on course. Now, obviously, it doesn't work out with every single person. Some people have got such deep rooted traumas that they won't respond to anyone because they're not in that space yet. But for those people who are willing to respond, it was a wonderful responsibility and an eye-opener that I could whisper into their soul and say, the story that you have actually matters.
I don't know if you can remember, but I remember before your first book that you and I had a discussion in terms of who is Kim and what do you want to do, and you were just bouncing around. Well, Doc, what do you think is going to happen? Is it even worth the while? What have you? And I remember looking and I said, you know what, Kim? One thing about you is you're so relatable, and that is that you're very easy to speak with. And just being in your presence, I don't feel judged at all. I just feel like I can have a normal, open conversation with you, and I feel great about it. And he went, oh, is that really what you think? I said, yeah, it's really what I think, because I don't have to pretend. It's just that's who you are. So it's very easy to speak about you because what you see is what you get. And you looked at me and said, to me, that's interesting. But I could see your little mind was going like, well, that's interesting, but you were still rolling on. And then when it got to the point of, do I publish? Do I self-publish? And I said, hey, Kim, whichever way you're going to go is going to work anyway. Yeah, but I self-published and it worked. And I remember our first discussion. Do you remember of just having that conversation, which said to me that, and I didn't say it to you then, but I'm going to say it to you now. It also says that you're a teachability. The fact that you, as a budding author then, just have a conversation with you made you teachable, because you say, here I am. And that's why you can become a coach today and be a great coach, because you're willing to be teachable in asking another coach, what do you think? So respond to me on that.
I actually don't remember that conversation, so I'm really happy that you did, because what I find is, and that's what I was talking about, legacy and leaving the ripple effect, is that you can have one conversation with someone and it can change the trajectory of their life if they are indeed, as you say, coachable.
Well, definitely. Well, I go back and I think to myself, here it is. And look at Kim today. And that was before your first book. And I remember on the second book, you were sort of throwing around, guys, which title is better, this title or that title? And by then, I was hooked because I was so engrossed in terms of celebrating you. And I said, Kim, I'm one of your biggest fans. And you never believed me. And one night we went to a place where you were one of these keynote speakers. I was in the front row and I was just being me in supporting you. And he came to me afterwards and he said, hey, just the support you gave me today is thank you. That's what Kim is because of who you are. And I just want to say to anybody listening to this, we talk about unleashing potential. People who naturally help others unleash their potential don't even realize they're doing it for other people because it's so natural. That's what you did. And I remember that you spoke for 7 minutes and it was succinct, it was great. And I really was impressed. And I want to just compliment you and say, let's applaud you, Kim, for having the courage to be on that stage, to speak there. And hey, I was one of your fans sitting right there in the front row. Do you remember that?
Thank you. I do remember that because when I looked at the footage, you were writing notes.
Correct.
And I asked you about that, and I said, why? I even saw that you were writing notes, and you said it's part of honoring the speaker. And I've always remembered that. So when I attend someone else's talk, if it is in a setting that where I can take notes, I always make sure that I do take notes, because it made such a big impact on me that one of the audience members was truly present while I was speaking.
Well, the truth is, it's great information, but the thing is, we all know is that when we basically sit and listen to things, we don't retain everything. And by using all the senses, by listening, the visual, and writing the notes, it makes it impact into our own being for a much longer period. And I'm able to cross-reference and go back and say, hold on, this is what you said. And if I'm not clear, I can come back to you and say, is this what you said? Is this what you meant? And yes, I did it to number one for me because I am very teachable too, like you are, but I was honoring you to show you I really am taking interest in what you were saying. But here's the difference, Kim, and this is why I want to just give you a little high five. Take it, high five, boom, there you go. Because you came and asked me, why would you take notes? I said, because I want to honor you. And the fact that you even remember that, well, I'm blown away. It just shows you the power of words and that we have to realize that the tongue has got the power of life or death. And when we speak life, we can eat the fruit of it. And tonight is fruit of that relationship that was cemented right there and then. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And something that I also noticed about you is that several years before that, you and I were involved in a different kind of business, one where we had to all be teachable as a team. And sometimes people look at opportunities and they say, oh, it's not for me, or it is for me, or whatever. But when you just try something out, even if it's new and even if it's different, you'll get to meet a really interesting group of people if you remove skepticism. And I met you at one of those events. And there came a time period where there was a little bit of a conflict that you had moved from one business and your wife was in another business and you went over and you said this to me. You said, I'm here. I'm not really supposed to be here in official capacity, but I'm here to support my wife because at the end of the day, I serve a higher boss.
There you go. There you
And I
go.
looked at it and I thought to myself, that's really walking your talk. A lot of people speak about faith, speak about leadership, speak about influence, but there are not that many people who will walk the talk even when it's hard.
Well, Kimmy, I'm going to say thank you for that, but I want to come back to the mind whisperer to say, right, when you coach, because remember, it's about unleashing people's potential. If there's a person listening and say, let's first ask, how many books have you written by now? How many books?
So I've got 12 titles out on Amazon at the moment, and I am busy with 3 additional ones. One, I would say, is about 80% of the way finished. I've already written the whole story. We're now in rewrites, and then I've got another 2 along the way.
Well, I am super impressed because remember, I was there with the first book, the very first little one. I'm like, oh my gosh, look at this woman. She is just a trailblazer, just going for it. But what I like most is that you've used the opportunity to say, God has gifted you to write. Why don't I just spread the good news and help others to write as well? And if you just, I mean, your email says it all. I mean, what is your email address? Let the people here, you say it?
Oh, Kim at write, learn and earn.co.za.
Stop right there. Kim at write, learn, and earn. That's your.za. I mean, if there's ever a descriptive email, that is it, because it actually says what you do and what you offer. Now, I think, I don't know if you realize it, but that is powerful because it underlines what you stand for.
This is true. And the thing is that what I realized when I was publishing, when I was self-publishing, is that people don't necessarily do this intentionally. But when you work with the average publisher, whether they're traditional publisher or they are someone who's helping you with self-publishing, they get you to a certain point and then they drop you. And they're not doing it intentionally. A lot of authors have got like a J.K. Rowling dream, and they say, I'm going to write the book, I'm going to amusement parks made about me, whatever. But it really is a business. And if you are unable to actually go through it, do a plan, have a marketing plan, follow through, you're not going to make the sales. You're not going to make sales if you decide in your business, if you say, oh, well, I'm just going to take the next 6 weeks off and do nothing.
Yeah.
You're not going to become a world famous coach. You're not going to be working in Dubai as you have. You have to actually have a business plan and follow through. But I realized that because of this pie in the sky dream philosophy that we have, we expecting our publisher to make it happen for us. And that's just simply not true. And so the reason that I designed the company name the way that it is that writing is only one part
Quite
of
correct.
it. You do have to learn your craft, your skill, the marketing, the world of books. And only once you do that and you implement the lessons that you've learned, that is when you'll start earning.
Well, I can tell you unashamedly, I have a lot to learn from you because I found that my first book flew out, got multiple copies sold, and then came to a standstill, which means I've only taken the first part of the writing seriously and I didn't follow through. So I'm going to tell you straight. My first little book did 20,000 copies. Okay. But it stopped after that. I don't even see it anymore, which means I could actually come and consult with you. And this is why I want to give other people that are listening in saying, yeah, I'm admitting I have to still learn how to go to the next level. And Kim, you're one of the person that can help me with that. And that's why you're on, helping other people unleashing their potential. I just want to say to everybody, if you're listening in and you say, hey, I would like to know more from Kim, right now, just type in there, Kim, please contact me because Kim, you're going to get this link and you are going to send it to your people. But I want to make sure that anybody that contacts me through my YouTube channel gets to you because they deserve to get to you. Okay. So now I want to go back to that very first book of yours, the discussion of fiction, non-fiction, etc. What made you decide to write in the style that you chose to write?
So interesting. I've always loved the complexity of Game of Thrones. So I watched a couple of episodes with my husband, and then I quickly came to realize that I didn't like the sexual immorality that was in there. I didn't like the kind of violence that's in there. So, some people are going to say, violence is violence. So, no, because some medieval movies and things have got violence because at the time, the medieval times were violent. I mean, there was just,
True.
you can't write a book about medieval times and be accurate without some violence in it. Power was taken by the sword. that's just the way that it worked. You know, if you were a king, you left it to your kids, and hopefully they were strong enough to fight battles, because someone was going to come and try and take power away from you. So while I was watching it, I thought to myself, you know, I love some of the characters and that kind of thing, but it just doesn't sit well with me. So I had to stop watching it, because the violence was cruel violence, and you know, that's not something that I enjoy whatsoever. So I said, imagine if there was a story that had all of that complexity and intrigue in it, that didn't have all the nasty bits. And at the same time, I have got 3 children, and my middle child was incredibly challenging.
Okay.
She's an incredibly smart girl, fiercely independent, and I kind of blame her personality on my husband, because when I was pregnant, he came to me. My eldest daughter was ballerina and she's feminine and that kind of thing. And my husband said, listen, this baby, I don't want a wussy baby like you girls. I want someone who will go bungee jumping with me and snorkeling and skydiving and all the things that my eldest daughter and I were like, well, we're not doing that. So out pops this child, and she is an adventurer. She taught her brother, when he was still in nappies, as is a toddler, to climb up the tree outside onto the carport. He was too short, so he fell from the carport down onto the bricks, onto his head. He ate his supper with a little hole in his head. So most of her young childhood, I was terrified, and I was always shouting at her. I was always saying, don't do that, don't do that. And we drove down the road the one day, and she was in the boot of the car. We told her that she can't come with us. She got into the boot because she's like, I am going and I'm going to find
I
a way. And
love
then as you're
this.
driving, you hear the bump, 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 and it's my child. So we were always like freaked out. And I thought to myself, legacy wise, if I'm going to spend all of my time shouting at her, she's going to feel there's something wrong with her, that she's a problem child.
Yeah.
Whereas actually it's just my fear of, like, please make it to adulthood alive. And so then I thought, is there a way of celebrating her unique attributes that is going to live past me? So Nadine was the inspiration for the very first book, and it's actually expanding into a series of 6, and she was the original dragon whisperer. And how that evolved is she's got a love of animals. I would find her holding a bird in her hand. I mean, that's like something that comes from like Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs.
Yeah.
You know? So she would, and all little creatures and animals, you know, if there was a bat that the cat chased, she would go and rescue the bat and that kind of thing. So what I did with that series is I amplified all human qualities. There's no magic in the book whatsoever. I amplified human qualities. And you get horse whisperers. So I thought, in medieval times, what is the biggest kind of amplification of creatures? And that was a dragon. And so then I said, so if she can talk, to communicate with birds, and she's good with horses and that kind of thing, she should be able to communicate with dragons. Now, the dragon part got me into some trouble with the Christian community.
Yeah, of course.
And that was because they said dragons are evil. And I actually had a pastor who contacted me and said, you are not allowed to write about dragons as a Christian fantasy author. They're the enemy of God, and they always will be, and no one can say anything different about that. And so Barry Mitchell from the Uncovering Greatness team taught me how to take feedback. And I said, thank you for the feedback. And I said, there are no accidents. I think that it's a wonderful thing that you've contacted me. Did you know that Game of Thrones season 7 had 10 million views? And biblically, we are told that the fields are ripe for the harvest, but the workers are few.
Yeah.
And if we as Christian writers do not write into the space where readers want to have stories, they are going to go elsewhere. And that was it. I never heard another word from him again.
But you know, it's truth. I'm going to actually confer with you and say what happened to me. I was working for a company that actually had the name Dragon in their name. And I actually came up and I said, listen, is there any way that we could possibly consider removing the word dragon, because I'm getting flack because obviously I'm a believer too, and people giving me the second degree. And in the end, we did go for the change, but what it did in that case, it just opened up the vision to go boom, and it became a much wider vision. It became a global perspective as opposed to just one entity and one user function. So it had multiple user functions of that. So, but if I look back again today, and we can sometimes trip ourselves up just on one word, as opposed to saying, hold on, would I rather expose it to the multitude and let everybody find inspiration, or do I just want to achieve it and speak to a small segment of the world? Which, it all depends on what you want to do. So I would agree with you that it takes boldness. But the thing is, writing has liberty. You can write whatever you want, Kim. It's your mind. It is your story. I mean, come on. Tell me, somebody has never said to themselves that they've spoken to an imaginary friend and somebody that understands them. Or now I can come and actually lambaste you and think like, oh, you can't do that. Says who? It's your life. It's your mind. You can imagine. I mean, I believe in the term, just imagine. Just imagine if people are starting to read because of your books. Just imagine if people who didn't read before get intrigued and like your storyline, like your style of writing, and now become avid readers. And you know what? I believe leaders are readers. And that could be the way that they got introduced to becoming avid readers. So you can see there's a place and a methodology and approach for everybody. I think we should actually just say, forget the judgment, do as we feel called to do. In your case, you're writing and you're already on 12 novels. I mean, come on. How many people do I know that's written 12 books? I don't think I can count them. Okay. I don't. So what does that say? Good for you. Get away. I'm doing what Kim Vermaak is supposed to do. I'm going to write because I love writing and you're making a difference. So I want to commend you and applaud you. Keep on going. So that first book was based on your inspiration from Nadine. And basically, what was the title again?
So the very first book is The Last of the Silver Wings. And just to let you know that I'm not just writing fantasy, I've got a greater purpose in that. So every single book has got a theme in it that affects the human condition.
Okay.
So the dragons that I created, these 4 species of them, I created them to help human beings, but I address genocide in them. I address things as controversial as abortion. People say to me, don't, you shouldn't write about that. And I'm like, people sometimes kneeling. So it's in there. I've got alcoholism in there. I've got how we can be emotionally abusive to people. There's depression in the books. So they are very real things. And I particularly wanted, and interestingly enough, a lot of older people read my book, but I wanted young adults, teens, to have a place where they could process some of their emotions, and some of them could get some healing for some issues that they might be struggling to speak to older people about, to people in authority. And I do have a friar, a spiritual guide that goes through the book and advises my dragon whisperers. So there is that theme in there. So, they say you shouldn't be preaching to people. There's different ways of teaching. So it's very much a teachable novel hidden in the folds of this fantastic fantasy world.
Well, Kim, if you just think you have got the inroads now to write books and you can speak into people's lives, and those who want to read will read it. However, there are certain problems in humanity and society that we have not addressed, such as, you know how many people I meet as a counselor that have got these hidden secrets that destroyed them, yet they've never had the courage to tell anybody else. So if one of your novels reveals the power of bringing it out into the open and the healing that it offers and the overcoming the trauma over a period of time through mentors and coaches, etc., I mean, that is a voice of in its own. And if you have got this thread, the silver lining through it to help others get out of the life of secrecy, get out of the life of guilt, I mean, that just does well for humanity. Is that one of your purposes?
Definitely one of my purposes. I've lived a very interesting life, and I've been faced with a lot of traumatic experiences. And I think when book number 2 came out,
Mhm.
that was called Fire Within the Storm. That is the one that specifically deals with abortion. I had come across 3 different women who had faced that kind of trauma, and the way that it played out in their life was deeply impactful to me. There are a lot of people that will say, you know, abortion is wrong, and you shouldn't be doing it, and blah blah blah, and I understand that where the voice is coming from. And then you have people who say, you must go ahead with it. It's your life, it's your body. But when you get into a bathroom and you find a 32-year-old woman pulled around the toilet, sobbing like a child because she has reached the anniversary of the termination of the pregnancy and she can never, ever take it back. It has an impact with you. I've sat with women crying, that rocking them like babies in my arms because I cannot take the pain away from them. No words can do that. And so that particular book is an outpouring of my love for all of the women who have felt trapped. One lady that I know, when she had the termination, she had been taking cocaine. She'd had a relationship with a married man. When he found out that she was pregnant, he tried to strangle her to death. And her parents turned around and said, we're too old to help you. We don't want a baby in our lives. People don't realize the kind of trauma they go through. And I think because of that journey that I've had, that's one of the reasons it makes me a good book coach for people who've gone through trauma, survived it, and want to teach lessons to other people. Because I have that deeply empathetic space where you can't say things to me that are going to make me reject you. I'm always going to be looking for why it is that it's there, what the lesson is, and how you can unleash the lesson for other people.
Well, I can tell you, I have somebody in my close inner circle that actually was instructed at a young age to abort the child and decided no, as it is, and the child, it cannot be blamed for what has happened to us as adults. In the end, decided not to abort, had the child, and we actually sat having a cup of coffee the other day and saying, look at this beautiful child as a result of your decision to say no. Although she was instructed by parents, you will. She said, I don't care, because they were more worried about their name and their reputation as opposed to this person. And how powerful is that today? And we both spoke about, and we spoke about the child and went, oh my gosh, this child has become a role model to others, has got such a humane heart, etc. So I just get so inspired by just hearing how you want to bring the reality of those emotions. You say those real people that actually dealt with these problems. And that's why it takes great writers to bring a story, because stories sell. They don't tell. They sell in terms of what we could consider, what we should be doing. And that's why I want to agree wholeheartedly with you that the element of coaching and writing really dovetail and becomes a unit in terms of laying solid foundations for people to find their feet, to find a new foundation to move to the next level. So book number 3, what was the title and what happened there?
So book number 3 is The Call of the Ancients.
Yep.
And the main theme over there is drug addiction.
Okay.
So in that particular situation, a dragon had flown across the war zone to take an egg to safety. His mate died with her egg. So in my books, there's the dragon wars, and what I've taken from human society. So if you look at child warriors across in a lot of countries, they take children, they traumatize them, and then they turn them into soldiers. And so I took that concept, and in the books I said, if you can take a dragon hatchling away from its mother and you can turn it into a force for evil, because that's what human beings do.
Yeah.
They do that to other human beings. And so you have this fight for good and evil, and that there is the evil warlord that says, if I can have a dragon and I can train it to be a force of destruction, I can win battles just like that. I don't have to have lots of armies that I have to feed and travel with them. And then you have the force for good that says, no, let's hide the egg, so that at the end of the war, our dragon whisperers can go find them, hatch them, and those dragons are created to serve humanity, because I'm an author, I can write any kind of dragon I want to. But this particular dragon, because his mate died, he fell into depression. He couldn't deal with the pain. And there was a very specific kind of herb that used to be used for medicinal purposes, but if you smoke it, it has got narcotic effects on it.
Okay.
And so he becomes enslaved in this narcotic thing, and it's trying to get him out of that state into a whole and healed state, which for some people is actually never possible. Some people do it, but for some it's not possible. And so I deal with those kinds of emotions, what drug addiction does to your family, to the people around you, and your sense of purpose.
Wow, you know what, Kim, I'm just thinking, just listening to that, it serves such a great purpose, because so many people get stuck and they just don't know how to unwind and get out of it. And it's your freedom to write about it that maybe just plants a little seed and says, don't go past beginning, don't collect your 200 rand, don't do it, that kind of stuff. Well, for the sake of timing, I know you've got 12 out there. I've spoken about the first three. Let's just do one more. What is book number 4? What is it about? And then we're going to start landing this plane.
Well, let me pass on to that, but I actually have got nonfiction books as well.
Okay.
So, so I write under Kim Vermaak for my medieval fantasy, and I write under K Vermaak for my nonfiction. And I've got a very specific reason for that, because on the Amazon algorithms, there's incongruence if you've got a couple of different genres under one profile. So I've separated them so people know exactly what they can find in that particular title. But the first one, which is actually a free book that's available for people, is about legacy. And I paint pictures of people who have left a legacy for their family. So for argument's sake, Roald Dahl, he stumbled into being an author just purely by accident. And then there are other people that were quite deliberate. So there was I can't remember the artist's name now, it just slips my mind, but there was a singer who wrote a song, Time in a Bottle. You know that song, Time in a Bottle?
I saw that.
And he's basically saying, if I could save time in a bottle, I would spend eternity with you. And he wrote it, I think, when his wife was pregnant, but he ended up dying when his child was about 2 or 3 years old. And there are still royalties that are created from those songs when they play them again and again. And then the last book that I released is also nonfiction, and that is the Escaping the Well of Silence. And Escaping the Well of Silence is a writing prompt book. So it's a 30-day writing prompt book. And in there, so I don't know if people are familiar with writing prompts, but it's a very short piece of writing that you read, and then you continue writing in that vein.
Yeah.
And all of those stories are based for speakers and leaders and coaches. So you spend 30 days writing for about at least 15 minutes a day, so that you can get into the discipline of writing. Because the worst thing as an author is when you're staring at the blank page.
Correct.
And this unlocks that, because you don't have to do the starting words. Think of it almost like relay. When you're standing there waiting for the baton and the other person passes the baton to you, and then you continue running. It's that kind of vein. And the book has got, space there to write, to handwrite. You can pop it in your backpack, and then when you're sitting on the train, you can write in there. So I designed it to be short, impactful, and inside there I've got quite a few lessons for authors, things of taking care of your body, snacking correctly, taking care of your brain. To me, the saddest thing was Terry Pratchett, he got Alzheimer's. And for a writer to get Alzheimer's, it's like the worst thing imaginable. And there are other writers that now I have to rely on ghost writers, famous writers. They rely on ghost writers because they no longer have the mental capacity to write. Statistics or research has shown us that lack of movement affects your brain. So if you want to have a healthy brain, you need to move. And on that vein, I'm going to feel very embarrassed when it comes up. But my daughter said to me, "You're an influencer, mom. You've got to like walk your talk." I have got a short series of videos that is coming out for authors for exercises.
Good.
I'm not even close to being in shape. I bought the outfit that will show the least amount of bumps and bulges. And I looked in the mirror when I was doing the exercise. I've got a really strong looking personal trainer teaching me the exercises. And I looked in the mirror and I thought, what the heck am I doing? I don't look like one of these girls that are on the YouTube videos that like, they say, "Oh, I feel the burn." And then I say, "I feel the death after 2 minutes because I can't keep up."
You see, it's all about
So I've
normal
created
people. Kimmy, normal people want to know, how do you do it? That's what it's about. I applaud you. Really, I do.
It's for them. They're going to be 4. We are kind of thinking of doing more. We recorded them this weekend. I have to say, I can't sit down properly because of those exercises. But they address neck and shoulder, because when we're writing, we do this.
Yeah.
They address the hip and the back, and also the legs, because sometimes your legs get heavy and tired because you haven't moved. And these are exercises you can do in your home. You can do it sitting next to your desk, so you don't have a big, big break in your writing. But just get moving. It really, really does help you for vision, for brain cognitive, the whole suit. It really does help to move.
Fantastic. Well, listen, Kim, we've just touched the tip of the iceberg today, because I'm going to invite you back, and I believe that we should do your next program on helping budding authors how to write a book. What are the considerations, what to think of, how do you approach it, and how you literally put pen to paper, and how do you follow through until eventually you can produce a book. So with your permission, are you willing to come back?
Absolutely. I love chatting to you.
Fantastic. Well, I want to thank you for today. And I'm going to ask you, just I normally say, what is the one thing today that you want to leave as a last thought for those that are listening into today's program before I wrap up? Your last thought.
My last thought is make every decision matter, because it does.
Fantastic. And all I can say to you guys is, here's a normal human being, individual, that just decided I can add value, that had the guts to say, let's do it. And all I can say to you is, if you out there and it's about, do I want to write a book? I believe there's a book inside every single human being. Catch you next time. Remember, it's all about unleashing your potential. I bid you goodbye until next time.